Welcome to Empowered to Grow, the podcast. I am your host, Hanan Basha, the business doctor. Following our conversations with empowered women who woke up one day and consciously claimed, I am more than enough, I am worthy, I am empowered to grow. And along their empowering journey towards realizing their own potential and their quest for growth, they became a beacon of hope and guidance for others. May you also find your inner power to grow. Hello again, everyone. This is our Uncharted discussion of Empowered to Grow podcast, and this is your host, Hanan Basha. I'm still continuing the very empowering conversation with Dr. Laquore Meadows, and we're talking wealth and money and stock trading and some of the topics that could be a little intimidating to talk about, especially I know that I've been revising or revisiting my relationship with money over the past couple of years. So let's talk about the elephant in the room first. For me, the stock market. The stock market is a daunting idea, and just understanding the intricacies and really what it entails. So can you shed some light on that first, please?
Yes, absolutely. So the stock market, yes. I often get responses from people who are interested in beginning engaging in the stock market say to me, it feels like this is a whole foreign language, right? And it can feel that way. I completely agree 100%. But I think it's important to also think about sometimes there are fancy words created, right?
Yep.
But really, when you look at it, it's actually very simple. It's actually very simple. So one of the things that I share when I teach my stock market one-on-one courses, I often ask people, all right, do you think I can teach a fifth grader how to trade on the stock market? And they're like, yeah, I think you can. Some are like, oh, I don't know. Well, and so I get to the point where I convince them, you know what? Actually, it's simple as something what I call the A-team, right? Animals, arithmetic, and angles. All right, animals, arithmetic, and angles.
Okay.
So when we think about the stock market, it's very simple in the regards that there's what's moving the market are animals. There's bulls and there's bears. Then another way to say that is buyers and there's sellers, right? The other thing is the angles. So when we see the stock chart, everybody looks like, okay, what is that? What's going on, right? Those are the angles on a chart, right? And so as the stock trader, that's where we're using what we call a fancy way to say it is technical analysis in order to read a stock chart, okay? And then for us to figure out, all right, did we make money or not? We just use arithmetic. Right? So it's as simple as the A-team. It's understanding what the buyers and sellers are doing, understanding the patterns on the stock chart and what's going on, the trends on the stock chart and what's going on, and then calculating, right, what's happening in the overarching market and placing that basic understanding in the broader context of the economy. Okay. So that's how I kind of can simplify it for people.
That's amazing.
Yes.
From a business perspective, I say that, when we're talking even about a startup, because I work with a lot of startups, what is their ultimate goal? Their ultimate goal is to get to the IPO and the stock enlisted.
Absolutely. Yes.
And that becomes, again, because they're looking to, well, it's not just about the wealth, but it's also, I think it's a form of validation that they're doing a good job, that someone would want to invest in their stocks.
Yes, absolutely. That is definitely an aspiration for a lot of new businesses that are starting off the ground. So yes, absolutely. It's a very strenuous process, though, to go through the Securities and Exchange Commission and get to that stage. But definitely a great feat for a lot of people.
Okay. And you mentioned something about being a consumer and in being an investor in the stock market. But that's like kind of the progression. So, okay, I'm interested, but how do I approach, whether I'm guessing I'll be on the buyer side, not on the seller yet, but how do I approach this with the mentality of an investor rather than the mentality of the consumer that, we hear of, it's high, sell when it's sell when it's high, buy when it's low, and just going beyond that superficial first level.
Absolutely. So I think it's important when we think about consumership versus ownership, it's important for us to really take a stock in what it is that we're buying, right? And are those companies that we're supporting also supporting us? Right. So I am an African American woman. And one thing that I know about African American women in general, we spend a lot of money on hair products, right?
Yep.
We spend a lot of money on hair products. We spend a lot of money on clothes. We spend a lot of money on shoes. So that's fine, right? That's fine. But it's also important to figure out how can these companies that we're investing so much in also pay us back. And so one analogy that I use is, for example, there was a time when I needed an Apple iPad. Okay. And I said, you know what? Apple's gonna pay for Apple today. And so I went and I used Apple stock, right? And I didn't, because I'm a stock trader, went and found a strong formation and I traded Apple and Apple paid for Apple that day. Right. And
Wow.
so it's just thinking about how do we transition our mindset about the use of money. Oftentimes when we grow up, we're taught, okay, go to school, get a good job, go make good money, but we're not taught how to make our money make money.
Work for us. Yep. Yep.
Yes, and so that's where I think that mindset shifts comes in. It's really, really important that for us as women to make sure that we are considering, and not only considering, but actively engaged in.
Yeah. Yeah. And true. I mean, I don't think I ever had that part of the education. And you go to the end of the education process, like, okay, now what? And actually moving on from there or something related, our relationship with money and wealth generation as women. I don't think and again, to be fair, a lot of men don't have that either. But with women, it becomes more about the independence, because I personally know a good number of women who would walk out on relationships that are harmful to them emotionally, mentally, or even sometimes physically. But they're not doing that because they don't have the financial means to sustain themselves or their families or something. And that's the part where the understanding how to generate wealth and understanding how to make whatever, even if it's like $100, work for you a bit. So you're kind of expanding that. I think we need to talk more about it. We need to educate more women about it.
I completely agree. I believe that as women, we've been socially conditioned to say yes to so many things, but we aren't socially conditioned to say yes to our legacies, right?
Wow,
And
that's
so
profound.
I think that having those intentional conversations, also creating the intentional spaces for us to gather to have these conversations are so critically important. What I find too is when I'm working, particularly with women, oftentimes it's Laquore, I never learned this. Right. And it's like a whisper, right? It's almost a sense of embarrassment, if you will. But there's no reason to be embarrassed because it's just not something society tells us to do, right? So it's up to us to change that narrative. It's up to us to create those spaces. It's up to us to be intentional about sitting in the midst of people, of situations, of settings that can help us to think at another level, right? And so that's one of the goals that I have is to be intentional because I've been blessed to have the knowledge of learning how to invest and trade in the stock market. I'm being very intentional about creating those spaces for people.
I love that. And I love this mission. And I think when I get asked the question of why just working with women or why empowering women, I mean, I work with both, but my vision is about empowering women. I'm like, no matter what we say, we are conditioned in a way that is disempowering on so many levels. And I felt like it became my vision and my mission, where the alignment came in for me was to make sure that I never cross paths with a woman that remains disempowered in her own life.
Absolutely. That's good.
And that is it. It's not about, again, when I say this, I say I don't hate men. It's like, let's not put them on pitchforks yet.
Not at all. No.
I say when a woman is empowered, there is the ripple impact effect. I know that when I started empowering myself and I started making those shifts for myself, by default, I created this way for my husband and our son and everyone I cross paths with. But more importantly, it is about understanding that we have choices that we didn't stop to analyze before, or we made ourselves believe, because we've been conditioned to believe, that I have no choice. And I say that, whatever our decision is, we are paying the cost anyway.
Yeah.
You're paying the cost to say yes, and you're paying the cost to say no. Choose what you want to pay for. Choose where you want to invest.
Right. Absolutely. And when you just mentioned that you're helping to pave the way, for your husband and others, I truly also am a firm believer that our wealthiest self reveals our most authentic self, right? And so not just wealth as far as money, but wealth as far as mindset, wealth as far as just offering opportunities to others, right? That shows who we really are. And studies suggest that women, when we have specifically financial wealth, we change nations. Right? We change nations. And so that's, another reason why I'm happy to hear you say that. And I'm also happy to be in a space where I can help to change those nations. Yeah.
Yes. And it's amazing. And, the more I talk about it, Laquore, and the more I connect with women around the world, I'm Egyptian. I live in the Middle East. I live in Qatar.
Okay.
You're American and you live in the States.
Yes. I love Egypt. I've been to Cairo before. It's really nice.
I was there for the Christmas holidays, and I managed to go to the museum where they had the parade for the mummies. And I'm like, I connected with my ancestral energy, and I have this high every time I come back.
Awesome.
Actually, speaking of the ancient Egyptians, the women were so empowered back then. It's like, we had the queens and we had the rulers. But that's the conditioning.
And pyramids too.
That's the conditioning that I'm seeing that is crossing borders. And it should be the other way around. It should be, that I'm not talking equality. I'm saying I have the right to believe in me. And that for me is the essence of what empowerment or self-empowerment is about. That Absolutely. I can create, I can reach the world if I want to. I can create the wealth that I want. And as you said, the wealth is not just about the financial means. Of course, it is a huge enabler to whatever we decide in our lives. But there's also the wealth of health, the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of mindset, the wealth of relationships that are meaningful and are empowering in themselves. So there's so much that we can tap into and we can aspire to. Just that starts with that nucleus of, I can empower myself. I believe in me, going back to your word of believe, where we ended, that I can believe in my own success in whatever it is. And it doesn't need to be the next. And that's what I also say when I work with women who want to start their business and grow a business. I'm like, it doesn't need to be the next $1 million business if you don't want it to be, because of course that entails a whole different trajectory of efforts. Be the next 2 hours a day to entertain myself as the kids are in school business. And that is a success, going back to the subjective success. Yes. But it starts with the belief. What do you believe? And how do you align your belief system with what success means to you? And then having that trajectory of, where do I go from here?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I agree.
I think we can, the beautiful thing is we're each finding a way to empower others. Yes. Whether that is, as you said, with the 101, one-on-one, with the 101 of stock trading, of creating wealth, of feeling that you have that power within you. And I think that financial means as well gives you that power of choice, or at least to shift the mindset towards realizing that you've got the power of choice.
Yes.
And then beyond that, taking it, addressing the other elements of our lives that just support us towards whatever goals we set ourselves to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love this. Okay, so I want to wrap up with one final question to you, please.
Okay.
If you were to give women advice on where do they start, if they want to say, okay, I've got $100, or I've got $1 million, or 5.7, was it? 5.7 that I need to invest.
Yes. Yes. A lot.
I've got $100. Let's start with the $100. And I know, or 1,000 to be realistic, to get into, have to see the impact of it. Where would she start with $1,000? How would she start?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first step to any investing strategy is to really spend some time considering your most valuable asset. And that most valuable asset is yourself, right? Thinking about, what is that North Star? What goal do you aspire to accomplish? Whose life is going to be changed because of this investment? And what do you want to be celebrating 365 days from today, right? Once you've identified that North Star, also considering some of those money memories as well, because what we learned about money as children seems to creep up in our adult life as well.
Yeah.
So thinking about, what did our aunts or our mom, dad, grandmom, whoever it was that had the pleasure of raising us, what did they teach us about money? Spending some time to really think about that is really helpful prior to starting any investment strategy. So once we've got that, we spend some time in that space, the next step will be to figure out, okay, if the stock market is something I want to do, then signing up for a brokerage account. Okay, and so with a broker, that's actually the entity, if you will, is going to help facilitate your buy and your sell process. All right, so signing up with one that has a simulator with it, because it's helpful to practice first, right? So I signed up with one that has a simulator. And then from there, then that's when, while you're actually doing that, is educating yourself as much as possible, making sure that you're become fluent in stock market speak, if you will. Spending time listening to, I'm not sure what the television stations are in Egypt, but for here in the US, CNBC, which is one of our.
It's international everywhere.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. So listening to CNBC, listening to what the commentary is going on about the economy, understanding terms like the Dow, the NASDAQ, the S&P 500. All of those things will be important as one continues on that journey. So educate yourself is a really important step. And the last thing I would say, most importantly, although education is really important, is execute. Right? It's one thing to learn a thing, but it's another thing to actually do the thing. So I just encourage women or whoever is listening to not only spend time really figuring this thing out.
The fear of failure, that has to be, you need to cross over that. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. So spend some time executing, and then execute some more and execute some more. Right? Then ultimately you'll find success.
Yeah. And that's the point, is, as you said, to be able to make that calculated risk, or at least minimize the risk. Then if the hurdle of the fear of failure is about, what if I lose it all? Well, start with the small things. And I say, you never lose, or you never have a failure. You're actually gaining experience out of it, because you've made an as informed as possible decision.
Absolutely.
And that's a learning process.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I tell my students is that there are lessons in the losses. Like, I don't regret any loss I've had. I've had them, but I don't regret them, because I learned something in the process, right? I learned not to do that again.
with the, now that I know better, I hope I will do better next time.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think that that's an important step, is that execution is key.
I love
Mhm.
that. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge and
Yeah, it's been
your
my
energy
pleasure.
with us.
Thank
And
you.
I'm hoping that we all invest to give, as
Yes.
in have that as a direction of where we want to go. Yes, we want to create the wealth for ourselves and for our families. We've earned it, we've deserved it, but also sharing the wealth is such an important factor that just goes way beyond to create and to make sure that legacy that we leave behind is one that is worth surviving for many generations to come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Thank you.
Thank
Same
you.
here. Same here. Dr. Laquore Meadows, thank you so much. Everyone, I hope you're as empowered as I am now to, even though I've been working so hard on healing my relationship with money over the past few years, but now I think I've got a whole new perspective on the concept of investing to give and of empowering myself with the knowledge to be able to maybe soon, not maybe, that soon I will jump into that unknown world of stock trading.
Awesome.
Which markets
Awesome.
around the world would be able to satisfy that quest for me. I wish you, as always, love and abundance and prosperity, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to the Empowered to Grow podcast. For further engagement with a tribe of empowered women, join my Facebook group, Empowered to Grow, or visit my website, www.hananelbasha.com. I'll catch you on the next episode. And until then, know that empowered you empowers others. Love, abundance, and prosperity to you all.